Hello everybody, this is Etho, and in today's tutorial I'm going to be teaching you how to build my mob spawner, my hostile mob spawner. So, many of you have probably seen me build this in my LP series, but I still thought it would be good to have an organized and to-the-point video on how to build it in case anybody else wants to build it in their worlds. It's a pretty simple project. Let's go take a look at it. Now, all mob spawner designs tend to have pros and cons to them. The main pros to this design is it's very simple, practical, and cheap to build. Like, you don't need any pistons in it, and there's no redstone. It's all very simple. And it's also relatively lag-free because there's no water updates happening and there's no piston updates or anything like that. The main disadvantage of it is you sacrifice some efficiency because mobs aren't getting pushed off the pads. They have to walk off on their own. But we'll talk more about that later. So I'll show you cutaway versions of the mob system here. It's 19 by 19, so 19 by 19, and then each layer is 5 blocks high. So here's a full layer, 5 blocks high, cutaway, and what you would do is you would stack one layer on top of each other as you build it type thing. This is what a 4 block high layer cutaway looks like. Then a 3 block, 2 block, and 1 block. Okay guys, so I'm going to show you how to build one layer of this mob system so you'll know the pattern, and then you can just repeat that for however many layers you want to include in your own mob system. We're going to build it mostly from scratch, but we'll use this first layer as a way of speeding this up somewhat. So first of all, figure out where you want your center point for the thing, and then kind of expand out like in this shape here. And as you do that, you can place your pads to figure out how far this needs to stretch. But since we already got it down, we'll just go ahead and do it. So the pads are 3 by 3, and they have 8 spawning spaces on each pad. There's 12 pads total per layer, and then there's also 4 bonus spawning spaces per layer. So it works out to exactly 100 blocks of spawning space per layer. And you can build your... Oh yeah, before we continue, I should mention this is only for spawning creepers, skeletons, and zombies. You can modify it to spawn endermen as well, but you won't be able to get spiders out of this thing. You get endermen just by making it 1 block higher. Yeah, you can build this out of any block you want. You don't have to use snow. You can include a pattern if you think of a good one. But each layer is 740 blocks you need. So there we go. That's our 12 pads. Then what I do is I start putting up the walls. So it goes like this. This spot here is for water. And then there's also water in each of these corners on every side. Oop. I also recommend that you build this thing at least 24 blocks off the ground so that you can kill mobs using gravity through fall damage. It seems to be the quickest way of killing mobs, so unless you have some other method planned, but it seems to be the quickest and the best way of getting lots of drops. Okay, so I did that, and now basically got to build up the walls. I'm just showing you the procedure I take when I build these. I've built 2 so far. One on the Minecraft server and one in my LP. But yeah, you just go along, build up the walls like this. And so as far as how many layers you want, I would recommend between 5 and 10 is what I found. In this world here, since everything is half slabs, there's no real place for mobs to spawn except for in my test spawner there. I found 5 layers was enough for it to reach its max potential. But in your world, if you're very likely to have caves, even if you light everything up or you think you lit everything up, there's probably going to be some you miss. So somewhere between 5 and 10 layers will do the trick to get the max out of this thing. And that's very important also. To get good rates from any mob system, the most important thing is to light up the caves in your area, any dark spots. Because if mobs are spawning in caves, they are not spawning in your mob system. So go up one more layer yet. Oh. And right here is where water is going to be. So you should actually have a block above that like this, which I missed. Go all along here. Do one over here. Okay. But yeah, it was changed a few patches ago where mobs have like an idle timer now. So if a mob is over 32 blocks away from you, after a short period of time, it's possible they will go into like sleep mode where they won't move anymore unless you come within 32 blocks of them again. So with this type of mob system, they can get stuck on the pads and you have to wait for them to despawn before you get any new ones. So that is the main disadvantage of this over other mob systems that use pistons or water to push them off the pads. And then what I do is I just go and fill in the second layer of the pads. I like to do this afterwards so that you can still get around by jumping like this. And lastly, I recommend you place the water. Oh yeah, and our bonus spawning spaces are right here. Water will be below in there, so you can do that as well. Whoop. Oh yeah, and if you do 5 to 10 layers, 5 layers works out to 3,700 blocks you'll need, which is about a double chest full. And if you do 10 layers, again, it's up to you to choose what you want, but between 5 and 10. If you do more layers, it'll help lower jamming as well in here. Okay, and then you can place your water. I sort of recommend you bring ice with you when you do this instead of buckets, if you can get ice, just because it's stackable and you can easily place it and then break it to get water. Okay, and all this water flows to the very center there. Pushes all the mobs to the center. You don't need any signs, it just stops short of the center hole. Very good. So last but not least, we put on our half slabs in the middle. And these prevent spiders from spawning in the system because spiders need 3 by 3 by 2 high area to spawn. And like if they were to spawn here, 3 by 3 area with this as a center, it would be this block here, this one here, this one here, this overhang, and in that space we have a half slab which prevents them from spawning. Okay, that's all there is to it. So you just stack them on top of each other. To start the next layer, you would just go all over top here. If you want Endermen to spawn in your trap, you need to give them 3 blocks space above each spawning pad because they're 3 blocks tall. instead of just the 2 we normally have. Do that by adding one more layer to the wall before you start the next layer. That will make each layer 6 blocks tall instead of 5. And make sure you build your spawning system out of something that Enderman can't pick up. Like, you don't want to build it out of dirt. Now, something else you may want to include in your mob system is a lighting system like this with these lamps that you can turn on or off to either enable or disable mob spawning inside. You would put these in the ceiling of each layer, and they are positioned right here on all these end pads. So there's a total of 8 lamps here, and hostile mobs require a light level of 7 or less to spawn, and no spawning space in here is at that level. They're all at 8 or higher with these lamps positioned where they are. And this also works out perfectly because if you're doing another layer above, the spawning pads would go like this and cover over your redstone wiring so water can't wash it away. So works out great, and you can go up to each layer doing vertical torches like this. But keep this in mind. This torch pattern repeats every 4 blocks, and these are 5 block layers that repeat. So it may come where you need to invert the signal or something. You could do that like going down like this. You see it's unpowered now instead of being powered. So you can invert it that way, or like if this was a block here, you might have to put another torch on it to invert it that way type thing. But yeah, just play with it a bit, you'll figure it out. Our example mob system here is 5 layers, so it's 26 blocks tall. 5 layers times 5 blocks per layer. It's 25 plus 1 block for a cover over top. 5 layers is the minimum you're probably going to want. And if we look at entities, you see the E up here. We have 1 entity in our world. And if we get this going, this will give you an idea on startup times and that too. But that entity count should keep climbing up to about 80 because the hostile mob limit is about 79. It can go over that, but they won't spawn if it's over 79. And that should just keep climbing until it hits it, roughly. And I'll pick these up so they don't interfere. So yeah, it reached the max pretty quick there. But that's because that is the only place mobs can spawn in this world. Everything's half slabs, there's no caves. In your world, you're going to have more dark spots, so you'll probably want to go up to about 10 layers or so. And one of the advantages of having more layers, you see how it's sort of clogging a bit. If you have more layers, they'll be spread out more so per layer, and they'll be able to get down quicker without getting in each other's way. Also, you probably don't want to go over 10 layers because you're better off just spending that time, the time you would take to build extra layers into lighting up caves, because it's a more effective use of your time. In ratio, that thing only has 500 blocks of spawning space, but the caves in your world, like in the area, is thousands and thousands of spawning spaces for mobs. So you want to get those lit up. It makes a huge difference. But anyways, guys, I'm going to end the tutorial here. I hope you enjoyed this and found it informative and useful, and have fun building your mob system if you do.